My biggest concern for this team in free agency was losing Dre Greenlaw. And although that has not happened yet, it does seem like we are trending towards that direction. Fred and Dre Greenlaw's significant others have posted on social media indicating that Dre Greenlaw is going to be moving on. The first post says, point of view, your team didn't make the playoffs. By the way, it's looks to be Fred Warner's wife crying hysterically. Says your team didn't make the playoffs, and the NFL free agency is taking your best friend to another team, and we are all severely unwell. And then there is a picture of balloons, the number 57, and it looks to be some sort of cookout that they're having. And the post says, we quite literally have been blessed with the best neighbors the past 2 years, our last block party. So this was a concern for me because if you remember when they initially got Dre Greenlaw, they got him at a heck of a rate. They did it right after the Bears game a couple years ago, first game of the season. And then Dre Greenlaw has significantly outplayed that contract, even with the injury, by the way. And he came back this year. He played just the one game, got hurt again, but he looked phenomenal. So the thought process is if he hits free agency at his age, yes, he's coming off a major injury, but he's fully recovered from that injury by the time next year starts. He'll go through all the medicals. A team is going to pay him good money. They just are. And the 49ers are most likely not going to be able to match that. They have way too many other moving parts, other priorities. This was the biggest concern that I had was Dre Greenlaw leaving. And it seems to be trending towards that direction, which begs the question. If you are trying to get a new defensive coordinator, which, by the way, Sorensen is still not fired. He's still on this staff as of right now when I'm recording this. They have let go of Schneider. You would think they would let go of Sorensen at the same time. Maybe not. We'll see how this thing plays out. But if that is the case, and you are trying to bring in a new defensive coordinator, and you're losing Dre Greenlaw, what is the appeal? If Shanahan wants his system ran, you're forcing a defensive coordinator to run a system they may not want to, potentially, and you are lacking a lot of talent that this roster once had. This is not the dominant defensive line that it once was. You lose Dre Greenlaw, it's not the dominant linebacking core. Yes, the secondary has improved. We all agree there, but they're most likely going to lose Charvarius Ward as well. So what is the appeal for a coordinator to come here? So certainly you can go get the Ulbrichts, you can go get the Salas. Personally, me and Rand Carthon was fired today as well by the Tennessee Titans. And I'm sure a lot of people will be like, oh, bring him back and bring in Robert Saleh. Enough with the retreads. Go out and create a new path. That team that you had a few years ago was special, certainly, but it didn't make a Super Bowl. It didn't win a Super Bowl either time. So now you want to bring in a bunch of retreads that weren't good enough to help you get over the hump? That doesn't make any sense to me. Why are you going back to the well? Do something different here. Don't bring back Robert Saleh. Don't bring back Rand Carthon. You have to do something different, and that includes a philosophy change. Kyle Shanahan talked about the wide nine, and the reason that he likes it so much is because if you have talented players, essentially, then when you run soft zone behind that and allow your players to go make plays, yes, you're not disguising things as much, but you just have really good players that are going to go make plays. That is no longer the case with this team. They're not overly talented on the defensive side of the ball the way they once were, especially if they lose Dre Greenlaw and Charvarius Ward. So you have to do things schematically different. You have to be, as he called it, unsound defensively, which I disagree with wholeheartedly, but you have to put yourself in vulnerable situations and leave things open to try to make big plays, get big sacks, get big turnovers. The Vikings aren't the most talented defense, but they're coached so dang well. And they've added talent since last year. They're more talented than they were a year ago. But Flores puts them in crazy, crazy good situations. Are they an unsound defense because they blitz like crazy and do interesting things? No. Were the Lions unsound this weekend after playing the 49ers and doing the man coverage on third downs and not setting a lot of pressure down after down and playing soft zone on downs 1 and 2? That was unsound because you didn't have the talent to go execute that game plan. But a week later, you realized that was not going to work. That is not how you were going to get the number 1 seed. So what did they do? They blitzed like crazy. That was a great game plan from Glenn, recognizing, hey, we don't have the talent that we started the year with. I can't just sit back in these situations, downs 1 and 2. They brought pressure all the time in the first half. The whole first half was just pressure, pressure, pressure. And it worked. It got Sam Darnold completely out of his game. And by that time, when the Lions offense finally started to pick up and do what they had been doing, it was a wrap. So you have to put your team in a position to win. You have to understand that this is not the 2019 49ers. This is not the stacked defensive line that can get home with 4. They have to change things up. And losing Dre Greenlaw makes this an even bigger priority, if that is the case, assuming he is gone. And by these social media posts, it certainly seems that way. But that doesn't mean that has to be the case. Brandon Ayuk, once upon a time, his girlfriend was posting that he was gone, and we saw how that played out. I don't expect a long, drawn-out thing with Dre Greenlaw. He's going to hit free agency. He's going to see what his worth is. I'm sure he'll bring it back to the 49ers and say, hey, this is what I'm being offered, and they'll say yay or nay, and he'll move on. Or he'll sign with the 49ers. My guess is that somebody's going to offer him something that the 49ers just cannot match. It's just the reality of having good players. You can't keep them all the time. It sucks. I love Dre Greenlaw, but I believe he'll probably be in another uniform. Hopefully that's not the case. It was a concern of mine from the jump, and we'll see how this thing plays out. But we're just talking defensive as a whole, defensive philosophy as a whole. Man, they got to change this philosophy. They shouldn't be bringing in a retread to do anything that hasn't won a Super Bowl with this team. And they've got to get aggressive on defense. They got to press man. They got to blitz. They got to get exotic. And they should bring in somebody that knows what they're doing, and just Shanahan, the wide 9. If that's what this new coordinator wants to run, and they're a great coordinator, sure. But to do it just because that's what worked in the past and that's what you liked, we're no longer there anymore. So we'll see how this whole thing plays out. But Dre Greenlaw does seem to be on his way to potentially another team. Good news is free agency is not that far away. We'll figure this out very, very soon.